All right, so you want an e-bike and you came across, after doing a bunch of research, cadence sensor versus a torque sensor. And then you hear that the torque sensor is the better one and it's higher end, that if you can afford it, you should get the torque sensor. Nothing could be further from the truth. Yes, torque sensors are typically on more expensive higher end bikes. However, the way a torque sensor operates is very different than a cadence sensor, and your goal is not necessarily to get a torque sensor. So let's dumb this down. Let's make it very simple to help you determine whether you should get a torque sensor or a cadence sensor. All right, the first thing is if you have leg problems, if you have foot problems, if you've had surgery, if you're a little bit weak, then you're not going to want a torque sensor bike. You're going to want a cadence sensor bike. I met this guy in Golden Gate Park maybe about a year ago, and he has 16 e-bikes. He has 16 e-bikes, and none of them are torque sensor. And the reason why is he had hurt his leg way back and had surgery and does not want to put too much pressure on that foot. Okay, so again, if you're weak in one leg or both legs, do not get a torque sensor bike. A torque sensor bike will constantly remind you that you're riding a bike. Okay, a lot of people, I'm gonna venture out to say this, a lot of people who are looking at e-bikes don't actually like riding a bicycle, and that's why they're getting e-bikes, right? So ask yourself, number one, do you like exercise? All right, not the outcome of the exercise, like better health and losing weight and a stronger heart, but do you like the act of exercising? If the answer is no, you want a cadence sensor bike. If the answer is yes, ask yourself, do you like riding a bicycle? Like seriously, do you like riding a bicycle? Because me, I've got 3 bikes here and I don't like riding bicycles. If they weren't e-bikes, I would not be riding them. And I've ridden e-bikes or ridden regular bikes for a long time in college. I ride this recumbent trike that is not electrified, and that is loads of fun. But I do not like riding bicycles. A friend of mine and we went on a ride together, and he rides a Stromer, and this is a mid-drive torque sensor bike, and it costs excess of $4,000. And he knew that my bike was a budget bike, and it's a Juiced Rip Racer. Juice no longer exists, but that is a cadence sensor bike. And we were both excited to try each other's bikes, and the moment he got mine, he was very impressed. The moment I rode his, I was like, oh, this is interesting. I'd ridden Stromers before, and the first e-bike I ever ridden was actually a Stromer, and it feels like Superman's pushing you, and it's great. But once you ride a cadence sensor bike and you're looking for something like that, the torque sensor bike isn't that. It's not my happy medium, okay? I don't like constantly being reminded that I'm riding a bicycle, okay? I know that may sound cocky or they may sound terrible, but you gotta admit to yourself, if you genuinely like riding bicycles, then a torque sensor bike may be the way to go. And you're gonna hear a lot of people online, on YouTube, whatever, tell you that a torque sensor bike is smoother. Yes, very true. It's easier to learn to ride a torque sensor bike because you ride it like a normal bicycle, and the way you pedal, the controller will just figure it out for you and give you the amount of assistance that you need based on the amount of torque or amount of pressure or push that you're putting onto the pedals. With the cadence sensor, it takes some timing and some learning, okay? With the cadence sensor, the e-bike is only providing you assistance when it knows that the bike pedal is rotating. It doesn't know how hard you're pushing, it doesn't know that you're struggling, it just knows that it's rotating, it's providing you assistance. So with the cadence sensor bike, to make it smooth, and don't get me wrong, this isn't difficult by any means, but it takes some time and is very intentional and not as intuitive as a torque sensor bike, okay? So with a cadence sensor bike, you have to time your gear like a normal bicycle gear, and your cadence, meaning the speed at which you're pedaling, along with the pedal assist level. So you have 3 things that basically need to jive together to make it smooth. And so when you initially ride, it's not going to necessarily feel smooth until you really get to know the bike and know what gear you need to be in, at what cadence level, and what pedal assist level. Another reason not to get a cadence bicycle, even though I love them, is that if you plan to go slow, and when I say slow, maybe you're riding with exclusively your kids, and you're riding an e-bike and they're riding a regular bike, or your friends are on a one wheel or something, and you're riding slower than than average, okay? Like slower than say 10 miles an hour, okay? Then the Cadence sensor bike is very difficult to go slow because once the bicycle senses that you're pedaling, it's gonna give you that oomph, it's gonna give you that push and assistance. And that assistance, even on pedal assist 1, may be too much. So if you're trying to go slow, it's very difficult on a Cadence censored bike. On a torque sensor bike, you can go slow very easily. So we're gonna summarize that again. If you have leg issues, do not get a torque sensor bike. Get a Cadence sensor bike if you have had surgery or leg hurts or you're just not interested in riding bicycles. Yeah, you want to ride a bike and you don't want to, you understand the enjoyment of being outdoors and kind of seeing the scenery, and it's not about, your destination, but it's more about the journey, then you're probably going to want a Cadence sensor bike. If you are a hardcore cyclist, likely you're not looking for an e-bike at all. But if you are and you like riding bicycles and you like getting exercise, then torque sensor will be the one, okay? A lot of people, I have a video about how e-bikes are not giving you exercise. Well, obviously it's about the opportunity cost, right? If you're sitting at home and you're watching Netflix and downing a bag of Doritos versus being out on an e-bike, then yes, an e-bike is going to give you more exercise regardless of whether it's torque sensor or Cadence sensor. But a torque sensor bike will definitely give you more exercise because it requires you to push and provide pressure on the pedals before it gives you assistance. Whereas Cadence, a lot of times the Cadence censored bikes will also have a throttle. So that's actually a fourth thing you got to deal with. In one of my other videos, I talk about how to choose an e-bike, and this same principle applies, and it's who's gonna ride your e-bike. If you're gonna have someone in your family or who lives with you, roommate, whatever, friend, who's gonna ride it occasionally but not as regularly as you, who wants to just kind of dabble and play with it every now and then, it's gonna be harder for them to manage a Cadence sensor bike. And again, it's not like difficult, okay? But it takes some time. It's not like you ride a bike and then you know how to ride a bike and then all of a sudden you can ride a Cadence censored bike smoothly. That's not the case. Generally, that's not the case. The torque sensor bike, again, you ride it literally like a regular bike and there's no learning curve whatsoever. With the Cadence sensor bike, there is. So if you're sharing the bike with someone else who's not as dedicated as you are in learning how to smoothly ride that, then they're gonna get on it and they're gonna be like, oh, it's too jerky, or I don't like it, or it's too hard to work with. Then maybe you want a torque sensor bike so that you can both adapt to it a lot more easily. But then again, if you're paying for it and it's your bike, then you should get what you want, right? One more thing. I would venture to say that generally speaking, okay, not all the time, but generally speaking, a torque sensor bike will look more stealthy. The reason why is because the selector for the PAS level on a torque sensor bike may not be so prominent. And the reason why is on torque sensor bikes, because the amount of pressure or torque that you can use on your feet on the pedal basically vary or act as a pedal assist level, you're not going to be changing the pedal assist level on a torque sensor bike nearly as much as a Cadence sensor bike. And so therefore, oftentimes it's integrated into the screen and not necessarily on the handlebar as a button. So the handlebar is going to look a lot more clean and the display may be a lot smaller or may not even exist. So just kind of keep that in mind if you care about the stealthiness of it or how it looks. And obviously, because torque sensor bikes exist on higher end bikes, you're going to have the screen probably more integrated with the frame, and the cable's gonna be integrated with the frame, and it's gonna look a lot nicer, and that may attract you and you may like the physical form factor of a torque sensor bike. But don't cheat yourself. If you fall in the camp of what I described as someone who would prefer a Cadence sensor bike, don't get a torque sensor bike because it looks cool and because you're proud to spend a lot of money for it. Okay, I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the torque sensor bike and spending money on it, but if that's not you, then don't get it. Because this isn't a matter of, what is the best bike? Is it better to have a torque sensor bike or a Cadence sensor? It's neither. It's the match. It's like a girlfriend. It's like a car. There's no best one. It's about the match for you. So keep yourself in mind. This is your product, your purchase. So make sure you put yourself in priority when you're buying stuff like this. All right. Hopefully that answered the questions. If you have any further questions about Cadence versus torque sensor bike and recommendations as far as one versus the other in topics that I haven't covered, then go ahead and leave comments below and then I'll get back to you as soon as I can. All right, take care. Hope you get the right bike. Bye-bye.